Welcome back to another web development video where I show you how to make modern websites using HTML5, CSS3, and a little bit of JavaScript. In this video, I'm going to head back into design and web design specifically. And I just want to introduce a concept that I've been thinking about for a year or so and trying to implement in my practice designs when I'm just building skill, but also whenever I have the opportunity to do design and not just development in my job, I've tried to implement this as well. The concept is that we design for the frame. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can see here my frame is my desktop browser window, right? So this is the frame that I'm given. And you can see here that I've got two different sections, but it's only it turns into 1.5. So I'm able to see everything here, but not everything here. And some people have said this is good design because it drives the person down the page and lets them know there's more. I'm not a novice user, so I can tell that there's a lot more to the page over here just by looking at the toolbar. Also because I'm stuck in the middle of the page and I haven't reached what feels like a climax or anything of the story. So I know that there's more above and below just by looking at the bar over here. So to me, that argument seems a little strange. People are going to scroll. Scrolling is not like a new concept on the web. So to me, that argument feels a little bit weak. As far as pushing the person down the page, because what I want the person to do is I want them to see each section. I've made the section so that they will look at it. In this case, this is a video, so when you click on the video, there's something to watch. So there's an actual interactive element here. So if I'm taking all the time to make a video that I want people to watch, I want them to stop and watch it, or I want them to stop and have all the information that I want to put on here. So same thing here. I want them to look through all of these testimonials. I don't want them to just sort of see it and skip on because they're busy looking down the page. So we're going to focus on this section here. In Adobe XD, I've sort of mostly faithfully recreated it. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to take these elements and design them for a tablet size, so an iPad, and then also design them for a mobile view. And the key concept is that we keep everything in the browser view. So right here, it's easy to keep everything in the browser view. You have a lot of space. But as the space gets tighter, you have to do some more things to try to reconfigure that. So let's just open up a tablet, an iPad. And we're going to take all of our information here and just copy it over. Now the tag that the website here uses, well, you can see what they did. They've just taken it and sort of shrunk it all down, right, and made it so that it fits, but the layout is the same. So they've essentially just done, they've done something like this. And then now it all just fits on the page, but now you have all this other space down here. And if you were to do, another section, you can see that on the page it starts to be a lot for your mind on this page here. So I'm looking here, but I also have all this stuff. I got this guy's face to compete with. I have this big text to compete with, but if I sort of bring this a little bit more like this, and if this were on the page, you can see how much more focus that brings to everything. I'm able to read it all without having to do any scrolling, because once you start scrolling, then you start introducing other elements into the frame. And the key here is to have people look at what you've done, right? To have them read it, or at least skim it, or to click the video, or whatever it is. So that's what we're trying to do we're going to try to do that with our iPad layout. So let's just sort of get back to our original elements. And the way I would do this, I would just pull this in like this, and then pull this in like this. There's not a whole lot of things that need to change with this top section. It looks pretty good. I'm using a base 18 pixels for that's one rem. So that's what I would go off of. And then now we have this text down here. And if we just stayed with this sort of design and we pulled it in like this, you can see that we run into the fold here. So we would have to actually scroll down. Even if you tighten that up a little, you're still just going to have to scroll down. So is there a way that we can utilize this space here at the bottom so that when we're looking at this whole thing, that it all is together? This is our design problem. And I think as far as height is concerned, if we do this and we do them as a 2-column layout, then we're able to get them here together, but obviously as they're constituted, they're too wide. So we would have to reconfigure these things. That's halfway. A little padding there. Pull this in like that, and we'll see how they're not quite the same. Oh, they are the same. We just gotta get them up next, in line with each other. Here we go. Oh, we had it. It's the center line, and then we'll give it a little bit of padding like that. Okay. So that gets us pretty close. And then now we have quite a bit of extra space actually down here to work with. So we could even space our image a little bit more and give a little bit more space around that image. Like that. And so this is not a bad design. It doesn't require too much. This left align is really throwing me off. So what I would do is I would come in and just center those elements up like this. Make this text center aligned. And so now to me this is a stronger composition. Just because it comes, you're starting here, you come down the page like this, and then you start to come over here, and then you move side by side. So once you get down here, you're moving a little bit more slowly. This is easy to take in, and this requires the user to slow down just a little bit before they get to the next section, which should help in terms of making sure that they actually read it. So let's do, that's the bottom, 10, 20, 1, 2, like that, and then 10, 20, and 1, 2, and then that way we have a little bit consistent spacing between them. You could even short these up a little bit. 10 minus 1 is 9, and you could, by proximity, just pull these things together just a little, make it a little bit better. Center that in the section and in the space, and then now you can see that we can get everything into our view, and we haven't had to do a lot of much of anything except for manipulate maybe the alignment of the text and things like that. Okay, and so you can see that we haven't had to do a whole lot with these. You could, I guess, technically just shrink this down a little bit more, like this, if you wanted to create some more height for that bottom section. You just shrink them down a little, pull these up, and now you've got a little bit more space here and a little bit more height, so they take up a little bit more of that section. So that's how I would tend to get in and fix this page. But you can see we haven't done anything up here. We've changed this to a single column instead of a 2-column layout. And then this hit down here, it goes to a 2-column. So anytime you need to create more vertical space, you can put things in columns, and generally it's going to shrink up that vertical space just a little bit. Now the real trick comes with the mobile phone size. So let's just open up a iPhone 6, 7, 8. So it's pretty common size, 375 by 667. Some phones are going to be bigger, like iPhone X. So if you wanted to do a design specifically for larger phablet type phones, or if you wanted to do a smaller one, so an iPhone 5 or 4 or something that you have to make sure that you're doing the design for, then you can do one of those smaller sizes as well. And there may just be some minor things that you need to manipulate. But if we come and we take our we take all of our information, we just shrink it down again. That would certainly fit, and you could do these things. You would have to make your text quite a bit smaller. But I think there's a better way for us to approach this, and that's if we manipulate the elements a little bit. Let's see what they did on the website. So if we go to an iPhone 6, 7, 8, so you can see here that it's really cut off at the bottom. Essentially, this section is in 2 pieces now. So you have this top piece with the video, and then you have this bottom piece with sort of the description or the feature descriptions. But notice how this all starts to kind of bleed together, right? So you're no longer seeing this as its full section that it is. You're seeing it as 2 pieces, and really, in reality, you're seeing this start to bleed into the next section. I will tell you, this is very common, and every design I've ever done, every one that I've ever that's been passed off to me is like this. So I'm not saying that they've made bad design choices at all. This is very common. In fact, I'll show you one in just a minute that I've done recently. Everything I did, the design, the development, and I ran into the same problems, even though I'm thinking about this concept that I'm telling you about. So this is what the design choices they've made. Let's see if we can do something a little bit different. So this is the viewport that we have. Let's bring in our text like this, and we'll just center it. We're gonna have to change and resize this a little bit, and let's make this 18 and make sure in Adobe XD I can give it these little handles so that it's text that wraps. So I'll just wrap it onto 2 lines like that. I want to bring it up just a little bit. Again, I'm on a base 18 pixel font size. So 0.9 or 9 is, you know, that's going to be 0.5 rem. So I have half a rem between these two. I have 1 rem from the top to the header text. Let's put our image on here, and it would be fine probably to just do the image like this. Now you only have this much space. So when I was doing this, preparing this for this video, I thought, well, is there something I can do to give me some more space down here? In this particular section, this is a video that you click on, like it's a link to a video, and it pops up and shows that. But what if this were just a contextual image, and it wasn't a video, it wasn't anything to interact with, it was just sort of a background image to provide some context and do some designy kind of things, and it didn't really have a functional place in the website. And I thought, well, if that was the case, then I could bring this up like this. I can make this an actual background image, because it's conceptually a background image. And I can move this down just a little bit. Let's go ahead and make it white. And you'll see here that it's still a little bit difficult to read. And so what we can do is put a background on her like this. We'll just do like an overlay. We'll make this black. Let's get it between her and the text. And then as we pull it down, you can see that the text really pops, but you can't see the image. So we want to have some, and then that's the with no overlay. So we just start working our way, not trying to make her too heavy or too dark, but just trying to make it so that this text pops just a little bit. So as we look out, we can see that text really stands out. We still have her face, which is really important. We can still see what she's doing, which is really important. And that's not what you can do here. So it's harder to tell. We still have her face and we have her body, and that's important parts, but we're losing some context for what she's doing. You can see here the entire image. We kind of lose the context for what she's doing. But here we don't lose context. We still get the image for the setting in the background, and then we also have our readable text. And then we've also freed up quite a bit of space. So now it's like maybe 2/3, 1/3. And so we freed up quite a bit of space in order to put our text. Now, why would you choose this sort of layout? I would choose this sort of layout if the image is not important and it's not an interactive element. And this right here is the most important part of the page. So what we want is for the user to read this text. And then we can take our text and we can bring it in like this. And you can see that if we do that, it's going to be a little bit too much. Even if we change the size of the text, we're going to run into an issue here where, again, we're bleeding off the page, right? So we're trying to do our best to not bleed off of the page. So let's see what we can do. Let's take our original layout, which is this left aligned layout, and it doesn't look too bad. You can see that we can almost get it to fit just like that, but the problem is our text is longer, right? So that's an issue, and that's going to push our text down the page just a little. So when we come in like this, it's still pushing our text down the page. Now, one way that we can solve this problem is we have 3 lines here, and what if we made this into 2 lines? So if we bring this up to here, let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. That icon doesn't necessarily need to be so big, and make sure that we center that up. And then now if we bring this up to, again, 9, and let's tighten this just a little. You can bring this out like this where it's to the side. That might be a nice look. You can play around with this part a little bit, but the essential part is that we take our 3 lines here and we turn it into 2, and you can see that it's already saved us a ton of space. We haven't had to change the sizing of this text, which is 20, but we could just drop that to 18, and that would help us. And we could drop this to 18, and that would also probably help us some. Remember, inside this circle is supposed to be an icon that's smaller, so if the circle looks a little big, you have to kind of remember the context. So get that all the way it needs to be, and we'll center this up on the page. Okay, we can make that about 27 or so just to give it appropriate space, and then we're going to do the same thing with this, but I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm just going to copy and paste that down here and make it 27 also, and we'll just swap out all this information. I'm just copying and pasting. Like that, and then I'll take this green color this a green color, and now we've ported over our text. Okay, so now that you can see this, I'm going to center this up. Okay, so now that you can see this, you can see that we've gotten a lot of our information, actually all of our information, right into a smaller format. Now, again, you can tell that the text is the most important part of this. We're covering up part of the image. Part of the image is obscured by a dark overlay. So you would make this kind of choice if this was the most important part. None of the text is hidden. Nothing has to happen for you to be able to see that text. You can move right through that section. But what if we wanted to stay true to this particular layout where you have this interactive element here? When you click it, a modal comes up or something like that. You don't want to obscure that. And really, if you're making a video, the video is the number one in the hierarchy, because it takes a long time to make videos, and you're trying to pack a lot of the information gathering into the video itself. So this is a little superlative. Maybe it's there for SEO purposes, or for people who can't access the video, which I understand, but this is secondary to the video. So let's try to make that happen in our design. So just going to come over and make a new one. In XD, that's like Alt and then move. You know, you just click on the element, you grab it, you click Alt, just like in Photoshop. And so let's take our elements and reformulate them. So I'm going to get rid of this overlay. We're going to bring our image back here. Since we're on a white background, we'll go back to our original gray. Bring this up a little. Let's do one rem, so 1020 minus 2. And then we have our image here. And we can shrink up our image just a little bit. Remember, this is essentially a link for the, what's it called, for the video. So you would click this and then the modal would pop up. So now we have these two things, and with our redesign, it looks good with this particular layout, but again, we're starting to fall past the fold. And you can see how this is just, it's just a persistent problem. And not necessarily a problem, it's just a persistent thing that happens whenever you make a website. But can we put this so that we can get all of this information into this? It's sort of a half and half section now. Since this text is not so important, what we can do is we can drop these icons. So I'm just going to drop those off so that when we're in a small size like this, we don't show the icons. They're probably not that important. We're not trying to highlight the text like we are over here. So when it's over here, it's really going to point out, okay, here's text that you need to read. Here's a header you need to see. But over here, the text isn't as important as it is in the other design. So we're going to move it over here so that they're left aligned to themselves. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this in here like this. I need to create, I'm going to do sort of a button design. So I'm going to create a couple of buttons here. Let's put that to the back. Give it 5 pixels, so just a little bit of a rounded edge on the button itself. Let's bring this up some. And we're going to just make sure that those two things are centered with each other. Let's make that 27, so this is our 1.5 rem of space. Same thing over here. And I'm going to make a little down arrow real quick. That's just the pen tool, and using shift will give you those 45-degree angle lines. Shrink this up a little and then pull it into our design. Okay, so something like that. It's close enough. I'm not going to be real crazy about everything on this right now. It's a little low. Okay, and then now I'm going to copy that down to another section. So we're going to have two of these, and this is going to be called design driven. Okay, so super creative and design driven, and what I want is for these to be like accordions. So when you click on the button, it's going to show the text underneath, and then when you click on this button, it'll show the text, and this one will sort of go up into the button again. So we're going to create kind of an accordion effect. This is a very common pattern for mobile because it saves a lot of space, but it also hides the text. So that's why I wouldn't use it here. If you want people to see the text, then you're going to have to do something to really make that text stand out so that nobody has to do anything in order to see the text. But over here, they're going to have to take some sort of action, at least to see this one, the design driven. And here, this is going to be plainly obvious that it is that it's supposed to be a play. So we can just do that and move that here and make it super obvious that this is a play link. Okay, something like that. So this is definitely going to be an action where I want this action to be front and center. It's above everything else and all the other actions that the person can take. So it's ahead in both the page hierarchy and it's ahead in the just sort of the visual hierarchy as well. Let's take this and we'll make this open to start with. So I'm going to bring this in here, and we need to change the size maybe to 16 pixels and just sort of drop the size a little bit. And I don't know how far away this is. 10, 20, 1, 2. So that's one rem of padding. Okay, and if we bring this, we still have quite a bit of space down here. So if we just bring this down, and that'll be 27 between these two, just like there is here. So we have an equal distance space. And then now, you know, we can play with that a little bit. So 9 is a half rem. Get that like that. Maybe just a little bit more. This is all going to be driven by padding, so don't worry about it. You know, you're thinking one rem of padding around, and then this one has to be adjusted to 27. We'll get rid of that because we don't need it. And again, what would happen here is this is already open. This little arrow, we can make it like this, so that it indicates that when you click on this, you know, something's going to happen, and what's going to happen is this arrow turns down and it becomes like this, and then this would all go up. You know, this would go away and this would go up like that, and then this one becomes open, so to speak. So this is one way for us to, and then we can create 27 pixels here, so that we create some nice vertical rhythm. So 27, 27, 27, and then there's a little bit of spacing here, which you can close up with the padding around the section. And so now we have a sort of a nice rhythm. We haven't had to do a whole lot to this header section or to the image, because that's going to be very similar to what we have over here. Again, this is a, you know, this is meant to be a large button for you to click like that, and again meant to be a large button for you to click. So we'll just enter those two things up together. So now you have this image is not a clickable or interactive image, but if you need this element to be interactive, you got to find some way to decrease the importance of this one in order to increase the importance of this one, because if you have it all together, we've seen how it just sort of rolls down the page, and then you've lost the cohesion of this section. So this is the concept, trying to stay within the frame, just like a photographer has to stay within the frame. You don't look at a photograph in pieces, you look at a photograph all together, and a photographer works hard in order to get all of those pieces together into the frame, including moving himself in order to make sure that all the things he wants or she wants is in the shot. Same thing with a painter. They work hard to put all the elements into the same frame so that you're taking it all in. Now, if you want to zoom in a little bit or something like that, you can just by moving yourself. But it's meant to be taken in all together as one piece of work, one art piece. And I think that the same thing can happen with the viewport. We just have to be a little bit more creative and less about how can I just take this and just stack everything on top of each other. I don't want to have to manipulate these elements. I don't want to do anything to them. I just want to make it bigger and smaller and then just stack it on top of each other. It's sort of a lazy way to do mobile responsive design. But having said that, I'm going to show you a project that I designed, and I did the design and the development work for this project maybe 2 months ago. And so some things, the marketing department comes back with ideas and they want to see this on it and they want to see that on it. So some things are not in my original design. Like this up here is not original and this down here is not original. Those are not choices I get to make. They're choices that are made for me, and I have to try to make it work. This is the reality of design in the real world. When you're making products with a team and it's not just you making all the decisions on what you want to do. Sometimes your ideology just really has to go out the window and you do the best with what you have. But originally this was the section and there was nothing on top and bottom. It was just sort of centered in the frame. It had a really nice, there weren't a lot of options for you to choose on this this front page. There was a button, I think, down here, and that was it. And as we move down the page, you can see that we start to get into some of those bleed over ideas. I didn't try to make all of these things fit into one page or one section. It really is scrolling down the page, and these could have obviously been made smaller. I've flirted with all kinds of types of designs, but I like this sort of zigzaggy back and forth. And this section here comes a little closer to that original ideology or vision. It's one section. It's almost full bleed, full height, full width. But still, even though you get here, you know, you start to see this was all supposed to kind of be together. So this was a little bit more of the vision that I had. So that section really goes together. This section here goes together. So when I designed it, you can see everything was designed to be on in the viewport whenever the user got to this section. So you can sort of take it all in at the same time. This section could have been that way had I had more space or different styling, I guess I could have employed to make these a little bit bigger. And then down here the same thing. So I sort of compromised on some of these sections. Obviously you run out of space down here, but this could have just as easily been full bleed. Wouldn't have worked very well, but when you take these two sections together, you really do start to see them come together kind of as the bottom call to action sections. But they're so different. These two are videos, and these two are like calls to action to take some sort of interactive signing up or going to purchase something or whatever. And when we look at it on our mobile styling, so if we look at it on the iPad, you can see that it does a little bit better job of all coming together here. Let's actually get it into an iPad size. a little bit better of coming together, but you can see how busy it is. When I started, it was just this section here. It wasn't busy at all. But as you begin to add elements into it, it becomes busier, and now you're like, I know where to look. Like this is going to be a first look right here and then here. But after that, you know, what do I do down here? Same thing here. This feels like it's balanced. It makes sense. But it would be better if this was all there was to it, were these three. But then we have this whole other section down here. Does that go with this? Does that do something else? Is it all by itself? It gets a little bit confusing as to where this section comes from. And then here, again, you start to see, if we put this at the top, this all goes together. But then now you're introducing a whole new section down at the bottom with links, with the like blue things that are going to catch your eye. So it can just be a little bit too much. This was all one sort of section before, but now it's got these other interactive things and this big text, and this all seems relatively clear. You know, there's a lot of cohesion here, but you can see how the compromises come in. And then this is the phone size. So let's do the actual 6, 7, 8. So this is not too bad. This is a little bit closer to the original vision that I'd had, where you can see just the clarity. You know, it would have been like that. You can just see the clarity of that frame, right? And then when you come down, now you have this and this, and these are two separate sections, which you can see with a line, but they really are bleeding together. It's really hard to tell. Are these two things together? Are they not? When I'm here, is this all there is to it? Oh wait, there's more. There are more of these, and then what are these about again? And I have to like, oh okay, this is all part of this, and maybe there are some design things that I could have done to make that better. I don't know. But I just know that when you get here, this frame feels right and good. This could be smaller so that it all actually does fit like onto the same frame. But everything fits together. You have an image, and you have the text that goes with it, and then you have the call to action. So everything is right there in the frame. Nothing is bleeding over, or nothing is distracting me from making that decision. And then this, again, this is supposed to go with this. But now this is not as strong because it's not supposed to be its own section, but now it's its own section. It has to like stand on its own. But it's sort of getting caught up with the free resources, and the free resources, again, you know, you're learning about it, but then you got to scroll down to take the action. Are there different things that I could have done in order to make that happen? This section feels like it's cohesive. If I, you know, cinched up this space a little bit, that would make it feel a little bit more cohesive and got it all into the same section. So that was not so bad. And then this one here, you know, you have your calls to action. They seem very clearly delineated. This is one and this is one. And, you know, here's what you do. You can sort of take that all in at the same time. And then same thing with the footer. You can kind of take the footer in all at the same time. So it's a little bit of a hit and miss. When elements get added into your design, you just have to find a way to make that work. And it's probably going to ruin your ideological stance of trying to get everything onto the same page, so, or into the same view. But controversial or not, I have no idea. This is just something I've been thinking about. And you can see that when it comes to like creating some perfect or utopian design, that's not the way it works in the real world. So you just have to be able to get rid of that and say, okay, I need to do the best thing that I can do with this particular section. But if you're able to keep that, where you're keeping things in the viewport, all the things in the section that you want to go together, that are grouped together, if you can keep those in the viewport, then I think that it's actually going to be a help for the user to be able to cognitively understand and take in all of the things that you want to go together, instead of piecemealing it or wondering, do these two things go together, or you get lost in a section because it's so long that you've forgotten what you're looking at now. So just something to think about. If you have any comments about it, please leave them in the comment section below. I'd be happy to take your comments on it. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Click the thumbs up button. That helps the videos go farther. And if you want to share it, that would be awesome. Share this with people who might find it helpful. And all right, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.